Hello DevOps people, welcome to Full Stack Live. I'm Jochen, the Monospace Mentor, and this is the Office Hour, my stream on Friday afternoons where I simply answer questions that you either posted to our Discord server or that you are asking here live on the stream. And to make managing these questions easier, please visit qa.monospacementor.com to get to the QA platform, where you can leave your questions and where you also can upvote other questions to get them answered more quickly. It doesn't require an account. You don't have to leave anything. It's completely anonymous. So feel free to go to qa.monospacementor.com and ask your questions there. I'm going to collect a few questions, and then we're going to going into the answer section of the stream. Other than that, I'm happy to be here again. Yesterday's stream was a little bit scuffed because I only got to start late, and I'm a little bit picky. If I get delayed or if something is screwing up my schedule, it doesn't. It does impact my mood, and I didn't do much yesterday because I also didn't prepare a lot. So the only thing that I did was present the Monospace Mentor community, which you can also find on www.monospacementor.com. The Monospace community is going to be an offering for people who want to seriously level up their skills and their career in a community of practice where other people will be there to help and where you can exchange your questions and your experiences with other people rather than trying it alone and maybe losing motivation or getting stuck with things that you can't solve on your own. The Monospace community hasn't launched yet. There is a launch list that you can join, and there is a good reason to do so, because for the first 20 members who sign up to the community once it opens, there will be a 10% lifetime discount on the membership fee, which makes it even easier to join this community. That being said, I'm also unprepared today, but by intention, because all I am going to do in this hour, roughly, sometimes it gets a little bit longer to 90 minutes, is answer your questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to go to qa.monospacementor.com and post your questions there so I can see what is coming in, and I'll tackle them one by one. You can also influence the order of my answers by upvoting other questions. And until there's something coming in, I'm simply going to have a little bit of tea. I hope everyone's doing well. I have a nice day so far. I'm having a nice day so far, and I'm looking forward to not only a long weekend, because Monday is going to be a bank holiday here in Ireland, but also very relaxed next week because I took some time off work, and I'll be relaxing a little bit and probably also working on my varnish course, which I'm going to hold end of the month. And I'm already getting in great testimonials from people who I've been working with before. And so I'm very happy and excited about this course to start. The varnish course is going to be about, well, varnish, a cache proxy that you can use either instead of a CDN or as a complement to a CDN. Varnish is a great piece of web technology that can highly speed up the response time of your web applications or your websites. And in this course, we're going to go deep on Varnish and its configuration language. And I'm really, really excited to share more than 10 years of experience with running Varnish in a high-scale managed hosting platform. So yeah, that's something that I'm also excited about. Of course, this doesn't have to be a 1-hour monologue on my on my side. So if there's anything that you'd like to ask or to share, pop into chat, say hello, such as Amiga Gamer doing. Yeah, simply post what you're doing at the moment, questions you might have, although those questions probably belong on qa.monospacementor.com. Or other things that you'd like to share, for example, open source software that you are excited about or something like that. So, Amiga Gamer says, hello, back in the day I used to use Squid proxy for caching. We had 100 computers on a dual ISDN line, got really hammered. I can imagine. And for example, in the course, we're going to discuss what the difference is between a forward proxy and a reverse proxy. The thing that Amiga Gamer just described is a forward proxy because it runs on the client side, in this case to speed up internet access for 100 people using a shared ISDN line, which probably only had a 64 kilobit or at the max probably 128 kilobit if they use channel bundling. Every little speed up counts if your pipe to the internet is that small. I still remember using Squid myself for the exact reason. And so if you use a caching proxy on your own side to speed up your own internet access, that's called a forward proxy. And if it's running on the web server side, however, and that's the use case that I'm most familiar with, then it's called a reverse proxy. Clients or site visitors usually don't even know that the thing they are talking to is not actually the website or the web server in technical terms, but the reverse proxy, which then basically shields the web application and web server from these requests and speeds up delivery of content by 100 times, a factor of 500, even a factor of 1000 is possible with technology like Varnish. And yes, Amiga Gamer, caching encrypted site gets trickier. That's true, because if the traffic that goes through the proxy is encrypted, then the proxy can't really analyze the traffic and also not read the response body, the payload, and that makes things a little bit harder, if not impossible. And that is why reverse proxies, for example, often or usually are used in combination with what's called SSL termination, where you have another proxy in front that simply takes care of the encryption and decryption, and then can pass unencrypted traffic to the caching proxy, which can then do its job very, very effectively. And that doesn't mean that there is a lack in security because you can localize this traffic or run it over private network over private network connections and things like that. And of course, you could also try and do some kind of a man-in-the-middle attack by trying workarounds with stuff like Amiga Gamer describes, where you have actually a certificate on the proxy which enables it to decrypt the traffic. Yeah, that's tricky. It also sounds pretty brittle. So I think I can imagine that this tends to break easily, and yeah, privacy is also another concern here. As I said, for example, our managed hosting platform does use SSL termination, where we have machines that take care of the whole encryption and decryption business, and that's all they do. So they have CPUs in there that can easily do the computational load of encrypting and decrypting SSL or TLS. And the Varnish proxies can then do their job and do what they do best, which is caching and processing requests at rates of thousands of requests per second. Again, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, because this is the office hour where I'm here to answer questions. Then go to qa.monospacementor.com, ask your question there. You don't need an account or anything. You can ask your questions anonymously. Please be kind, and I'll pick questions, and I'll be able to display them nicely on screen as well, so that people who just joined the channel and the stream can actually get a little bit of a context of what I'm rambling on about. Maybe let's get that on screen. So here's the Q&A screen where your questions are going to appear once you post them on qa.monospacementor.com. And until questions start popping in, I'll simply stay here and have some tea. I really like these office hour streams because they are a nice little way to round off the week. I don't have to toil until the end of Friday afternoon. And you know what, Amiga Gamer, that is fine. Thanks for dropping by and having a chat, because, hey, that's also a great part of every stream. Let me actually switch back to chat until we have some questions coming in. That is perfectly fine, just showing up to have a talk. Love that too. Soothing blinking lights, yes. I have to admit, I only do far too little with that machine. I really should get back to running historical operating systems on it. At the moment, it is just in blink and lights mode, because if I boot, for example, into Unix v7, the blink and lights will basically stop and only light up if the machine is actually doing something. So I would have to run some busy loop anyway. So yeah, that's the reason why at the moment it's just in idle mode. What I did really enjoy was running it with the RSTS operating system from Digital Equipment, which is pretty different from Unix. It doesn't even have much of a hierarchical file system. It's more like early DOS, where you have different drive letters. But it's numbers instead, and those drives don't have folders, so each number basically is a directory in itself, but you can't nest them and things like that. So you somehow have to have a structure on paper or something like that and tell people, yeah, that application that is in 221 or something. So that required a lot of getting used to, because yeah, you are assuming far too much if you are used to modern operating systems, and that even includes 1970s Unix. And still, for its age, this operating system was pretty capable. So two things that really amazed me were, first of all, the operating system itself has a file type which is basically a database, a very limited one, but you could basically have a file that is structured into fields and records. And simply by creating such a file, you had a database functionality right from the operating system. And you could, for example, write a basic program that did pretty sophisticated stuff by storing data in a very structured way. And basic was actually the second thing that amazed me, because the basic +2 that was available for RSTS/M was really, really capable. You were able to do modular programming by creating multiple application files, and you could then call one file from the other, and build pretty big applications that way, even though those early PDP-11s were limited to 64 megabytes of RAM, 64 kilobytes of RAM actually, or 128, 256 kilobytes, depending on the generation of PDP-11 you had. So being able to simply page out of the current basic program and call another part of the same application in a different file, that was pretty impressive. And I can imagine that people did some serious programming in BASIC back in the day. Oh, you worked at a power station? Yeah, I can imagine that. Though PDPs were really, really popular, especially in industrial surroundings like factories and power station, power plants, things like that. Not only to do typical data processing, but also to actually control industrial machines and things like that. And it did run VMS. Oh, interesting. So it must have been one of the later models, or of basically the latest models, because before DEC then switched from the PDP-11 to the actual VAX-11, which was the next generation of computers that DEC brought to the market. The VAX-11 then became the dominating system, which basically spelt the end of the PDP-11 generation, because VAX was able to do memory management and address much more memory than a PDP-11 ever could. And since demand had risen by, say, the mid-70s to early 80s, the VAX definitely took the place of the PDP-11. Yes, of course. Siemens always was strong in automation and things like that. By the 2000s, it definitely was outdated, but really consider how long the lifespan of these machines actually were. The PDP-11 was launched, I think, in around 1969, 1970, and easily lasted into the 80s for more than 10, 12, 15 years. The last PDP-11s, I think, were sold in the early 90s, if I recall correctly. And so imagine a computer system that actually span almost, 20 years, or around 20 years. That's just impossible today. I mean, today you're glad if your Mac or your Windows machine survives for 5 years before getting replaced. Still, folks, if you want to ask questions, and that's why I'm here, this is the Monospace Office Hour. After all, I'm here to answer your questions, and if you have any questions, go to qa.monospacementor.com, ask your questions there. You don't need an account or anything. You can just post your question anonymously and I'll get them on screen. You can even upvote other people's questions if you'd like me to answer them more quickly, because if you're curious or something. qa.monospacementor.com is where it's at, and as soon as questions start coming in, I'll get them on the screen. Still, my point stands, Amiga Gamer. I mean, if you are able to run your software on a machine for 10, 15, even 20 years, that is outstanding. And you probably people probably replaced parts, expanded memory, replaced old and slow hard disks with newer ones, replaced old and even slower tape drives with hard disks. Things like that certainly happened, but all in all, it was still the same machine running a complete business, depending on the machine being able to run. So I think that really is amazing to me, that people were able to run a machine for more than a decade and sustain a business doing so. Passive cooling has become a real great thing by now. I mean, you can see it with current Apple MacBooks, for example, and other systems as well. I mean, you can also run a Raspberry Pi, for example, with passive cooling if you have a nice little heatsink. And even bigger machines are able to run using a passive cooling. My colleague here at my managed hosting business, for example, Nick TNT, welcome. Thank you for the follow. And hello, Supir. Hello as well. Welcome to the stack, friends. This is the Monospace Office Hour. If you have any questions, post them to qa.monospacementor.com. It's free, it's anonymous, and if you have any questions about system administration, Ruby coding, or software engineering in general, IT careers and things like that, everything that I maybe can answer with more than 30 years of industry experience, I'm more than happy to do so. A colleague of mine even has a PC that's completely passively cooled. The whole case basically is the heatsink, and of course it's pleasantly quiet. And if you don't have any questions, simply enjoy the soothing music and, as Amiga Gamer said, the soothing blinking lights in the background. I mean, in terms of Pi longevity, the PyDP 11 back there is running on a Pi. It's a Pi 3, and it's doing so 24/7 and has been for 2 years, 3 years. I easily lose track of time. I don't actually know when I got the PyDP 11, but yeah, they simply do their job very, very nicely. Flirk cases. Let me take a look. Yes, they're definitely very nice. Kodi edition Raspberry Pi case. Nice. Ah, that dongle is probably the other side of the remote, I guess. Yeah, I see. Nice. And there is a question, actually. Thank you for posting that. What's the best language to build software in, and why is it Python? See, that's the advantage of being able to post questions anonymously, because otherwise I would have banned you. Balthazar, welcome to the stack. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Stupak even admits to writing Python. That's another insta ban. This is a Ruby channel, sir. How do you grow just a majestic beard? I have no idea, actually. Sometimes I'm not really happy with my beard because it's a little bit flimsy on my cheeks. But hey, as always, I do what I can, and I am content with the result. So other than that, it's just a little bit of grooming and beard cream that my lovely daughter made for me. I mean, Stupak, that's not even that's not really better. If you started with Ruby and then switched to Python, that basically makes you a traitor. So, Amiga Gamer says, I like Python. It reminds me of Pascal. I really do like Pascal. It's one of the first programming languages I learned. After BASIC, it was basically the second one. No, the third one. BASIC, then 6502 assembler, and then Pascal. Carl, welcome to the stack. Good to have you. Happy Friday, everyone. Again, if you have any questions, join us on qa.monospacementor.com, where you can post your questions anonymously. You can even troll us over there, even though I don't encourage that. Since I'm here to answer your question, it is the office hour after all. Feel free to post your questions there, even if they are about Python. I mean, I can't really answer Python questions because I actually don't think I've spent 2 hours in my life writing Python. So yeah, not much experience there. But if it's something more general in terms of software engineering, for example, or design patterns that apply across languages, I'm happy to give it a try. Amiga Gamer is learning Z80 assembler. You know what? I'm really thinking about getting an RC 2014. Another one of these retro kits. And they have pretty capable hardware, actually. You can get them with 512 kilobytes of RAM. I think. Is it kilobytes? I think so. And I'd be curious to do some stuff on there as well. Probably not in assembler, even though the Z80 assembler is pretty sensible, if I recall correctly. Balthazar says, I have an update on the old home lab and a question, more of a sanity check. Yeah, feel free to post it to the chat, or post it on the QL platform, or post it to Discord. Amiga Gamer said, there's a guy in Mastodon running a BBS on the RC. Yes, and I'm, of course, a member of that BBS. Wintermute, yeah, I know them. And Oglethorpe Gentleman says, yeah, fellow Ruby dev, hello, welcome to the snack, good to have you. LV, you are very kind. My hair is the best, I'm not really sure, but hey, as I said, I do what I can. And Fulle Snabel also joining us on this nice Friday afternoon. Welcome, welcome, hope you're doing great. And Kalima asks, hey, respectfully, what's your income? I'm DevOps semi-senior, lots of cybersec as a hobby, but not as much in dev, and want to know how much can I ask for a raise, since actually I'm just at $900 US. I don't think it would make much sense to give you my salary, because I'm a business owner and I control how much I pay myself. I mean, our customers are even more in control of how much I can pay myself. So we are in pretty different situations, and my salary won't apply to yours in any way. And since our responsibilities also would probably be pretty different, that doesn't really make sense. But hey, if you are interested in how you compare, I guess it's best to join communities and make friends there, and create trust, because that will then open up conversations like these. I think many people are pretty sensitive about disclosing how much they earn, so there needs to be a little bit of a relationship and trust to get these things. But there are also websites that publish these things in a more anonymous way, and that should also give you a little bit of insight how you're doing there. Fullersnauer said the answer is Ruby, right? And I think that relates to this question here. What is a good programming language to write short programs or scripts in? Fullersnabel gets 100 points, because yeah, my answer would be actually Ruby, but I'm biased. I've been programming Ruby for more than a decade now. It's been my bread and butter language, and it does actually meet all my needs, regardless if I want to write a short program for the command line, or if I want to write a full-fledged web application. That's definitely one answer, but there are, of course, alternatives. It's a good thing that you ask about programming languages, because I wouldn't include shell scripting in there. Bixby, thank you for the follow. I really appreciate it. Shell scripting is useful, don't get me wrong. But you really, I would recommend really considering changing to a full-fledged programming language once things get more complex, because at least the usual Unix shells don't really have great syntax and don't really have support for modern software engineering patterns. So you'll be better off with an interpreted programming language such as Ruby or Python. So, of course, I was just joking earlier. Python is definitely a very viable choice as well. And I guess it depends on taste and personal preference which one you're going to choose. I mean, you can also write short stuff in a compiled language such as Crystal or Go or Rust, but the learning curve might be a little more steep. So yeah, in terms of usability and versatility, I would say Python or Ruby are very good choices in there. Let me quickly catch up with chat so I don't miss anything. Colima wrote $900 per month in a consultancy in a third world country, so I'm basically being exploited. I thought so, that you wouldn't be based in the US, because $900 per month is not a really viable salary over there. But depending on where you live, $900 per month might actually be relatively good. That's basically for you to decide, and it really depends on where you work or where you live and what the cost of living is over there. I mean, oftentimes it's simply a matter of negotiation. If you can actually up your salary without even having to change places. Nick TNT says Golang. Yeah, Go is actually on the list of things that I'd like to learn next. Because sometimes it's really handy to have a compiled language, and Go also with its way to distribute fully contained binaries is a really nice thing for system programming. So Go is definitely top of my list of interests to learn next. It's just a matter of having the time to do so. Fuller Snabel says, because I'm 49 years old, I am at $49 per hour. That's a sensible way to do things. The more senior someone becomes, the more their hourly rate is going to increase. Imagine being 95. Oglethorpe Gentleman says Ruby is easy to pick up and reads very well. Yep, can confirm. That's why it's my top recommendation as well. Fuller Snabel, do you really want to start a chat war over Bash not being a programming language? I mean, on a technical level, it definitely is a programming language. I don't deny that, but I wouldn't count it as a very extensible. No, let me rephrase that. It's not a really maintainable programming language, and maintainability is a very important thing indeed. What did I think of the retro demo Fuller Snabel shared? And that is on the Monospace Discord. So if you want to join us, you're more than welcome to do so. I really liked it. It always makes me nostalgic seeing these things. Very nicely done. I love the music and the visuals as well. Well done. Amiga Gamer drops another motivation after teasing me with Pascal. GPIO programming in Python on a Raspberry Pi, I would assume. I could actually control the blinking lights in my PyDP11 behind me. Yep, that's definitely the case. Even though I'm actually not sure how all these LEDs are multiplexed on the GPIO. That would probably take also a little bit of getting used to and a little bit of research. How that's actually achieved. Just a second. Ah, okay. I heard that my son was outside, but my daughter's here as well, so she can open the door. Balthasar, for once, agreed with me. Shell scripting languages are pretty great to get started because you can stay close to a surface you're probably learning and using. But logic tests and other advanced paradigms in these languages are very different to most other languages and have weird nuances that work around some limitations. Yep, definitely. Yeah, there's no modular programming available, let alone object-oriented programming or something like that. So once your use case starts getting more complex, you'll be really stuck with a programming language that doesn't really meet your needs anymore. And that's why I say if it's a 3-liner or 10-liner maybe, shell scripts are fine. But if you can anticipate that the thing will get more complex and get more aspects and features, then make sure to know when to jump off to a real programming language, to a modern language. Okay, let's get back to your questions, because that's what we're here for. Let's see what we have. Here's a... Oh, I'm sorry. Need to fix that. I didn't want to get rid of it. I wanted to highlight it. So let's get it back on screen. Here we go. Is learning Rust beneficial in the long run? I have learned C, C++ when in school and learning Python. Someone told me that I should rather go for Rust instead of Python. Is that okay? It's really hard to give a definitive answer to questions like this that don't really have a context, because you'll get the usual answer of it depends. If you forced me to answer that with a yes or no, I would definitely answer yes, it's okay. Rust is a very capable language. It has a lot of backing at the moment, if not hype. I would say it's pretty hyped at the moment, and that hype will ebb off eventually, just like it did with Ruby, which doesn't mean that the language itself dropped in value in any way. It's very capable, and it has quite a few features that are very interesting. However, if Python does what you need it to do, why change? I think becoming more prolific in a specific language is oftentimes more effective and more valuable than learning a broad range of languages, even though that, of course, is also knowledge, because you can compare and you can maybe apply stuff that you've learned in one language to another language. I mean, you can even do object-oriented programming in C, even though C++ is the official language, C-like language that does the object-oriented programming, but you can apply object-oriented principles to C as well. And so you can learn from one language and apply these things in another. That's definitely of some value, but that's exactly the reason why I didn't go into Go yet, because couldn't prioritize it highly enough, since Ruby does what I need it to do. I can write the web application for our hosting platform that our customers use using Ruby on Rails. I can automate our hundreds of Linux servers using Chef, which is also based on Ruby. And if I need a command line tool that automates some more manual things, then I can also use Ruby to write a command line script. So in your case, I would question if it's really necessary to change away from Python, because Python is very capable. It has broad support by the open source community. There are lots of add-on libraries and things like that solve all kinds of use cases. So don't just go after Rust because there's a hype. If you have a use case that Python doesn't cover, then consider Rust as one of the alternatives, but depending on the actual use case, Rust might not even be perfectly suited for that use case. So again, we end up with it depends, but just don't chase after every hype because people are recommending stuff that's en vogue at the moment. If you have a use case where you consider Python not as suited and where Rust might be an option, you can add another question and we'll take a look at that. So remember that you can also upvote questions if you want me to get to a question more early, especially if I do longer answers, then feel free to upvote a question to get it prioritized. So here's a question: working at a large company in DevOps and it's complete chaos. How do you prevent ClickOps, skunkworks, deploys, and still keep a fun workplace without being a curmudgeon? Well, that's the first step, I think. Not becoming a curmudgeon is a good step to keeping a fun workplace, because no one really likes curmudgeons. Does anyone still remember John C. Dvorak? That's who comes to my mind when I read the word curmudgeon. So, the question here is, of course, pretty layered and complex. Large company in some kind of a DevOpsy context, and it's complete chaos. I mean, you've basically pinpointed the root cause. So there doesn't seem to be much consensus of how to do things. No real standards or guidelines how to do things. No golden standards of which software to use and things like that. And then that, of course, then has the consequence of doing ops by mouse clicking and doing things your own way, because why not? So I think trying to rein in the chaos will automatically make it more structured and make things also more fun, because I mean, even though it might be fun to try out something new and introduce a new tool that you really like and that hasn't been used at your place before, not having to think about these things is also very valuable. Take me, for example. We've been using Chef now for 13 years, and it definitely has its limits, and the whole configuration management approach has its limits, but still, not having to think about how to set up a server, because there is definitely a known solution to that, which is in general Chef for us, and there's probably even a solution that actually solves the current use case. For example, if we need a reverse proxy to Mindful Tatiana, welcome. Happy to have you on the channel. Thanks for following. For example, we often have the use case that we run some monitoring software or something else that has a web UI, but that web UI isn't secured via TLS. Then we can simply use the Nginx TLS proxy cookbook or recipe that we already have and have had for years. And we put that in front of the web service. The web service itself is just bound to localhost, and the Nginx proxy then exposes it to the operations network or even to the internet with TLS encryption. That's something that takes us 5 minutes or so. It's a solved problem, and even though, I mean, you could put something like Caddy in front, or traffic, or another kind of proxy or something like that, which would be more buzzword compliant and cloud native. But why would we do such a thing? I'd rather be done with it in 5 minutes and then either take care of something more pressing, or simply call it a day and get a cup of coffee or go watch TV instead of chasing another hype and stuff like that. So yeah, I would try and convince people to standardize more, to start documenting how things are done. Have your golden solutions where you say, okay, for this type of use case, we use this type of software, and you can go to this repository to find examples of how we do it. That would definitely be something that I'd try. Of course, that's always more easy if it gets management backing. So if you're not a manager and don't have any authority from your job title, then try and use the authority that you have as an engineer, and try maybe convince your team lead or whoever your manager is to back you in these attempts, and that might actually over time might make things easier. Hope that helps on this very abstract and general level. If you have a more concrete question, please follow up. So there was an upvote, which means I tackle this question next. In your honest opinion, all my opinions that I'm expressing here are honest. I'm curious to know, what are your thoughts on the so many layers of abstraction the DevOps scene has laid out on top of Docker? I'm talking here about higher level orchestrators such as your Kubernetes, Helm, Terraforms and the likes. I sometimes have the feeling that Docker is all you need, and anything on top of it is a solution to a problem that none or very few wanted. Curious on your perspective. I think we are pretty much in agreement there. I was very reluctant to start getting into and using these later, as they are called, cloud-native solutions. Docker at the beginning was such a hype that I instinctively rejected it, and I don't think I even touched Docker for 2 years before I started getting curious, before I started realizing, okay, there seems to be something to it, and it has some staying power, so maybe it's worth my time. And the same goes for Kubernetes as well. Over those years, I made do with more traditional solutions, and yeah, that was fine too. It was the same when I started using Kubernetes too. I mean, you only need Helm and Terraform and things like that, because stuff is getting so complicated with scalability and things like that, that you actually need these very sophisticated tools to even manage a Kubernetes cluster and the applications on it with namespaces and all that stuff. I mean, if your situation requires this kind of complexity, then it's great. But if it doesn't, I'd be very wary, because sometimes, yeah, stuff like Kubernetes is solution looking for a problem. And if you don't have that problem, you might actually elevate stuff that you have to a problem of the level that requires Kubernetes. And I don't think that's a good idea. That being said, I mean, when I got deeper into Kubernetes, all its components with its config maps and pods, and more abstract things like the containers and deployments, services, all that stuff, I realized, yeah, it's pretty clear where this was developed. That was developed at Google, where dozens of PhDs created a system so abstract that it would actually fit all kinds of use cases. And Google does have all kinds of use cases. They have their search engine, they have their Office suite, they have their email systems, and everything needs to be run in some way. Each of these services has their own stuff like job queues and other stuff. Some are really, really complex front-end wise and need a lot of stuff talking to the actual users, but probably also very complex back-end services, stuff like that. And if you have to orchestrate and set up services of that complexity, then something like Kubernetes is probably a godsend, because it has all the building blocks to run applications like this. But who of us actually has use cases as complex as this? For example, we have at the moment only one Kubernetes cluster, and this cluster is running our company websites, which are based on a static site generator. They simply deploy containers that has a simple web server serving static HTML files and asset files to the public, and that's all this Kubernetes cluster does. And it's simply to have at least a little bit of practical experience using Kubernetes in production with stuff like updating to new Kubernetes versions and things like that. So it's basically a practice cluster, and where Kubernetes was not required in any way. And as you said, Docker would have been all we needed. We could run our websites on a simple Docker setup on an Ubuntu machine, maybe two Ubuntu machines if we wanted to have redundancy. Putting a load balancer from our cloud provider in front of it, and that's it. If we wanted to have it a little bit more sophisticated, maybe we would use something like Docker Compose to have some kind of orchestration there. But that's all we would have to use. The Kubernetes cluster we're running there is completely over-engineered. And that definitely applies to many other situations in many other companies as well. So if there's not really a need for you to even explore Kubernetes, why would you do so? As I said, the reason why I'm running this Kubernetes cluster for our websites is simply to have some practice, to see what can break if we upgrade Kubernetes versions, how to use Helm to, for example, update the cert manager that takes care of Let's Encrypt certificates and things like that. I simply wanted to have some practice in there, and that's why we are paying DigitalOcean in that case for a little managed Kubernetes cluster, but it wouldn't be necessary in any way. It's complete over-engineering. And there are other solutions that let you do a different approach as well. For example, HashiCorp Nomad is another nice way to orchestrate payloads or workloads without the complexity of Kubernetes. So if all you want to do is, say, run a few web servers serving static files, Nomad would probably be a good alternative in our use case. Simply run 2 Nomad nodes to have redundancy and higher availability, and those nodes then deploy the images with our websites in them and a little web server, and that's it. So if I wanted to have less complexity, I could step one level down by replacing the Kubernetes cluster with 2 nodes running HashiCorp Nomad. But as I said, a machine with Docker Compose would probably be enough, because even if that machine goes down, I can spin up a new one and spin up the Docker Compose file, for example, on it within 5 minutes. And for our websites, which only have a brochure character, 5 minutes of downtime shouldn't be a problem. So, I definitely can echo the sentiment that Kubernetes and other hype technologies might sometimes be, or maybe often be, solutions in search of a problem. I've completely lost track of chat. Let me see. Scrolling back. Okay, here we go. Balthasar wrote, as much as Go can be super handy, I'd almost advocate for someone to do a bootstrap with another statically compiled language before moving to Go, if all you've had experience with is interpreted languages. Interesting thought. Why is that, Balthasar? Oglethorpe is a gentleman. After my taste, been doing Ruby for about 6 years now. Highly recommend. Yep. Fullest Now is that Captain Coder did the music and he's a streamer as well. Oh, nice. No, Fullest Novel. You can always recommend other streamers here. This is not competition. A rising tide floats all boats. I mean, I'm curious about interesting streamers as well, because, for example, in a few minutes, I guess, we're going to be looking for someone to raid, and having more choice is always good. Bethesda says, I did pick up programming on my Adafruit mag tag again here recently. I have no idea what a mag tag is, so please post a link to that on the Discord. And if you want to join us on the Discord, please do so. It's a great little community. Let's see, skipping a little bit because the programming discussion is well on its way without me. Inode says, considering that GitLab is written in Ruby speaks enough about the language proficiency of Ruby. Yeah, and GitHub as well, and Shopify as well. There are lots of applications that are written in Ruby. Here's a link to quite a few of them. Oh, Bethesda wrote another interesting tidbit to add some strength to my statement. The Asahi Linux team has been working on building a full Linux subsystem for Apple Silicon Macs. They've been doing a great job. Yes, I agree. The developer that was working on building the GPU driver started their work in Python because it was easier to get started, and only when the driver had to go to a level where performance was needed to supersede development ergonomics. Yep. And they have done an especially great job in terms of graphics support. They are actually, what are they? OpenGL standard certified, something like that. There's a particular term that they actually met, which Apple even didn't meet. Apple themselves. And Bethesda asks, also, holy cow, did you just bring up John Z. Dror? Yes, I did. Uber Druber, which is an amazing Twitch name. Welcome to the stack. Thank you for the follow. That's very kind of you. Carl said, I like Docker, the concept, but I don't enjoy the implementation. Well, thankfully, there are lots of alternative implementations by now. For example, Podman is very popular in open source circles. So, that might actually be a viable alternative. Balthasar wrote, I've been exploring Kubernetes in my home lab, one, because I did want to grow my knowledge with it, but two, because I did have some use cases where the ergonomics of using a collection of isolated Docker hosts was leading to some limitations. Yep, of course there are use cases where Kubernetes is definitely a good solution. Inode said, actually Kubernetes is not that complicated, except the networking part if not managed by a cloud provider. I have built working apps on Minikube cluster successfully, but was not able to set the network so I can access them outside of the cluster. The thing is, if you want to run a Kubernetes cluster yourself, you need to be familiar with all the levels, with the network levels as well as the whole API control plane. Woe be you if, for example, your etcd database gets corrupted or something like that, because there's a high likelihood that you won't be able to get that cluster back to operation. Fulasnava says, I listened to a streamer here that is great, and she has 2 streams a week on some new Kubernetes service that came out to fix a problem. She has been doing it for 2 years. Seems not to run out of material. See, that's a streamer that I would be very interested in. Feel free to post the Twitch channel link in chat, please. Balthasar claims Nomad's a dying product, though. I'm not surprised. What is your statement based on, though? Dying in terms of acceptance, in terms of market success, in terms of strategy by HashiCorp itself? Amiga Gamer says, I worked at a company that was obsessed with VMware for virtualization and scaling. Most of the time it was not really required. I'm sure they will be regretting it now with some of the license changes. Oh yes. Yeah, I don't want to be in the shoes of people having large VMware installations. Broadcom isn't making any friends there. Uberdruber says, hello Jochen, first time seeing your channel today. Excellent stream setup, brother. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You see me blushing. I put a lot of work and love into this stream, and it's very nice of you to recognize that. Lots of chat. You guys and girls are really active there. Balthasar says, spending some time in a place that is less ergonomic will help you appreciate the creature comforts that Go brings to the table. Yeah, that applies to all quality of life improvements. Like, for example, having to work with VS Code instead of with NeoVim. Wiggity Whitney. I have never heard that. Oh, thank you, Uberdruber. That's so kind of you. Thank you. So let me give Wiggity Whitney, which is also an amazing name, a follow. Oh yes, that looks like a very appealing stream. Love it. Wait, she in her channel intro, she actually writes mirrored. That is an amazing ability on its own. Really nice. Thank you for that, Fulasnabel. And of course, you're right, Ed is the standard editor. Why do you need something more newfangled? Works on every printing terminal, if you still have one. I see that we still have 2 questions, and we are already well over an hour here, so it's basically the Office 2 hour now. Let me see, let's pick this one, no idea. For several years I have been using a Raspberry Pi, have several bash scripts written, however I recently upgraded to a mini PC, which probably is a good idea because these mini PCs are getting more and more cheap, and they are really encroaching on the Raspberry Pi territory. But since they are x86 based, they have far greater versatility, and yeah, that's probably a good idea. Should I have to, or should I choose to run a Kubernetes cluster here in my home lab, I would probably just get 3 mini PCs and stack them on top of my main home lab server here and be done with that. But at one point, I am probably going to get concerned about power supply here, because everything here is powered by a single wall outlet. Okay, but getting back to the question, I've been thinking about learning Ansible for setting up VMs. Would Ansible be a good path forward from writing bash scripts for setting up a system? Definitely. Ansible is great for automation, especially since it's really just one step above doing things manually or with shell scripts, because it actually uses SSH to log into VMs or servers of any kind. And that is really an easy step, and it introduces you to how configuration management and system automation works. So yeah, go for it. Really, even though I am a long-time Chef user, I'll try to get more into Ansible simply to automate my workstations. I have to, since I'm running Fedora Silverblue, an immutable Linux distribution, which means you don't really install much on the host system itself, and rather work in some kind of a sandbox, for example in a development container. I have to set up these containers pretty often, especially if I screw one up and install stuff that then makes things not work anymore. The nice thing is I can simply set up a new development container and install stuff again. But then again, having to copy DNF commands to install packages from my Obsidian notes is far less convenient than simply cloning my Ansible repository and doing Ansible apply. And yeah, I'm definitely going to get more into Ansible simply for my local and home lab automation, and that I think that's going to be a great entry into automation. Go for it. Then we have this question here. I'm seeing a slowdown and, to some extent, even a 180-degree reversal of the microservices one solution fits all approach. Any perspective on this? Going forward, do you think we'll see more of the monolithic systems architectures deployed? If this happens, any thoughts of how will the DevOps scene will look then? That's also a very interesting question. And yes, I agree. I see that too. Microservices was another hype that basically just... no, well, I shouldn't be as disparaging. It wasn't just another coat of paint on the old SOA pattern, but it was definitely a renaissance of the SOA architecture. And so it wasn't really something new. But yeah, everyone jumped on that train and started doing microservices without even considering the amount of complexity a microservices architecture will require and will make you maintain. So yeah, I mean, really, I'm a veteran in the space, and I've seen hypes and fads like that come and go year by year, and I'm not really surprised or even bothered to shake my head anymore. It is a good approach if your use case requires this kind of complexity. If you actually, for example, run something at the complexity as, say, Google or Facebook do, where they have services all over the place for different stuff. Facebook groups has a completely different architecture probably than, say, Facebook Messenger or the Facebook itself, the social network. And different teams running these things, and even having maybe different teams running components of these services. And for this, microservices is great. And to run these microservices, Kubernetes is a great solution. Of course it is. But I think we all should start by asking ourselves, is the problem that we are trying to solve of a level of complexity that requires these kinds of solutions? And as the aforementioned GitLab and GitHub and Shopify show, it's, well, I don't know about Shopify, I don't know the architecture there, but GitHub, for example, is a pretty monolithic application, and it's written in Ruby on Rails, and it works nicely. I'm pretty sure the engineering teams over there need to be inventive sometimes when they try to implement a new feature where maybe a monolithic approach is less capable. But overall, the monolithic approach did not really die out. And I mean, we can always bring 37 signals to the table, even though I am reluctant to do so. But they, of course, are very competitive in terms of running things in a monolithic way and not over-engineering stuff. And that is something that I can respect. Their other behavior, I don't. And so, yeah, again, use stuff that actually meets your needs and doesn't require you to jump through hoops that aren't necessary, because jumping through hoops is not only really exhausting, it does cost a lot of money. Now, this is a long question. I'll leave that for a little bit later, because now I have to drink another sip of tea and I'm running out of tea. Lanidiro asks, I'm learning VS Code. Any tips or suggestions? Keep at it. That would be my answer. So here's another editor question. I do want to upgame my programming rhythm, and I'm currently looking at Vim, especially NeoVim, to increase my click count. Do you have any pointers on some learning materials for a novice that you would like to share? I'm pretty sure chat has a lot of recommendations for you there. I don't have any experience with the more recent Vim distributions or NeoVim distributions. Think like Lunar Vim and similar packages, because I simply grew my Vim configuration over time, over also more than a decade, I think. And when I thought it was time to switch to NeoVim, I simply kept using that configuration for a while, and only started ship of Theseus style, replacing parts of my Vim script configuration with Lua-based configuration. So my dot files, which you can find on GitHub, actually are really grown historically and over the years. But I'm not sure if they will be a good entry to NeoVim. I mean, you can of course always use them as some kind of inspiration, or if you're getting stuck, you can see how I solved things. But other than that, I would probably use one of the Vim distributions that came out in recent years, and that make it much easier to get things running with a decent configuration and a full-featured NeoVim installation. Let's see, and Balthazar, thanks for posting the dot files as well. Nice. Parisera actually also gave great advice. Hopefully you're doing a project while learning VS Code. Don't learn VS Code just for the sake of it. Never learn something just for the sake of it. Get some kind of practical application. Ideally something where, as the saying goes, it scratches an itch that you have. So have some kind of a project that you want, or a goal that you actually want to achieve, and then work towards that goal. Never just follow the hype and learn something because some streamer on Twitch is doing that. That is very valid and practical advice. So... Fullest Novel says, we all agree Lua is the best language, right? It definitely is a fun language. NeoVim introduced me to Lua and forces me to do a little bit of Lua coding from time to time. Maybe I'll even eventually create my own World of Warcraft plugin. Who knows? Who knows? So, there's another question left, and it might actually be our last one, except if someone else posted one. I still have a little bit of time, but we definitely have run over the 1 office hour that was scheduled. Hey, I'm not sure how much data engineering or analysis work you do, but over the past 5 to 7 years, I've been following progression of causal discovery and causal analytics. These models differ from correlation frequentist models in that they are geared towards intervention-based environments, like marketing. Let me know what you think. I recommend Alexander Morlock's podcast to anyone interested in this topic. I suppose my question is, do you work in this area? Does it seem interesting given your current focus? My answer is, I have no idea what you're talking about. I haven't done any data engineering in decades, and so I have no idea what causal discovery or intervention-based environments are. Yeah, I guess that does answer the question. It's definitely not my current focus, and I don't see myself having any time to get into that anytime soon. Sorry, that's definitely not in my wheelhouse. Yes, Fullaslava, you did actually mention that when you posted the link to your retro demo, which was pretty amazing as well, that you can actually do these things in such a high-level language too. You don't actually have to use assembler all the time. And my question at the time was, how did you get Lua to run on what seems to have been a C64 or a Spectrum or something like that? How does that even work? Fullesnabel mentions TIC80, and Parisera says it's an amazing project, and Amiga Gamer says a big interest in TIC80. What is TIC80? Oh, okay, it's a simulated retro computer. See my interest tickled? Namaste. Thank you very much for the feedback. You're making my day. This is getting an upvote from me. Oh, I can't upvote. Oh, but yeah, consider it upvoted. And thanks for the support here. Tick 80. Let's have a look. Oh. There's my son knocking at the door. Okay. Tick 80 is a free and open source fantasy computer. Let's get that on screen as well. For making, playing and sharing tiny games. You get built-in tools for development. That's amazing. That's definitely something I could actually do with my little one. It's basically retro style stuff with sprites and pixel graphics, but it even has a tracker built in. This is amazing. Oh dear, this is going to cost me so much time. Look at that. Oh, that's my mind blown. And it has Ruby support. Oh, I'm going to start to cry on stream here. Okay, so first things first, let's start this. Oh, brilliant. Awesome. And yeah, I'll have to take a look at that. And yeah, that is actually Lua, isn't it? No, a local function? No, it could have been Python, no idea. No, it's not Python, it's probably Lua. Huh. Yeah, this is just amazing. Okay. Wowzers. Amigas Gamer says, I did play with Pico 8, but I'm liking Tick 80 more, is less constrained and open source. Yeah, that's what I meant. It's basically a retro computer with modern capabilities, and yeah. Huh. Amazing. I mean, I did try Dragon Ruby a little bit, but yeah, I never got too deep into that, simply because of time constraints, and I guess Tick 80 will live under the same constraints, but still, it does have a lot more things built in, apparently, with the tracker and the sprite editor and all these things, which Dragon Ruby doesn't. So, yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. And thanks for all the links and recommendations for tutorials and stuff like that. That is amazing. Tick 80. Awesome. Any further questions? If not, we did a lot of questions already, so thanks for all the questions, thanks for the great chat. Then we'll simply wrap things up, and I guess we'll raid Togglebit for a change, and Tick Ops. Yeah, well, let's create a new movement. Operations of retro computers. Nice one. So yeah, thank you for all the chat and all the things, and let's get ready and raid Togglebit. I hope you had a lot of fun. I did. And we'll see each other next week. Tuesday is my next live coding stream at 2 p.m. UTC, which also happens to be my local time here in Ireland. And until then, thanks for everything and take care.